So let's go ahead. 6:35. Jump into it. With that, welcome everyone to our September Parks and Gardens Commission meeting. And as usual, we'll start off with the business of approving the last meeting's minutes. Excuse me, Nancy, I don't know if you got any edits or corrections.
The only change that I made was, thanks to Aaron, the application for recertification that could turn out to be a collaborative effort between the Environmental Commission and Parks and Gardens is now correctly referred to as Sustainable New Jersey. And that's the only change.
Okay, I actually did. I'm going to double check. I didn't email you, but I did notice something that I wasn't there, obviously, but I wondered if just was a typo, which was in the discussion about, let me pull up, about dog parks. Yeah, and the comments on section 3 on commission priorities in the dog park. I think the last sentence about Miss Adrika Judith, right, noting that the footprint for a second dog park should be slightly larger than that of the dog park in, it says Bucklew Park, but I'm assuming that's,
Except it's Boyd Park. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll make that change before I send them to the city clerk.
So with those minor changes, then, if there are no others, I think we can vote to approve. So I'll motion to vote to approve. Can you get a second?
A second.
All right, all those in favor of approving the August minutes as amended, say yes.
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 I will
Did you
have
make
to.
that motion? I'm sorry, Charles. Did you make that motion?
I did, yes.
And okay, and Denise seconded. Okay.
I'll abstain since I was absent last month. I think everyone else approved, so no nays. With that said, let's jump into. I just wanted to continue a bit if there are any items you want to add from the conversation that you all started last month, right, about commission priorities. Obviously, I wasn't there, but I had, read the minutes and had a brief conversation with Aaron. So just want to affirm that it looked like the items that were put forward were the possibility of a second dog park and generally programming in the park, with one specific idea being programming at the dog park, the Boyd Park Dog Park, or Riverside Park, I should say. But from what I saw, it didn't look like necessarily everyone on the commission chimed in with any particular other priorities that they wanted to share. And so I just wanted to make sure we left a little time here. Folks who wanted to do so, right? So whether Nancy, Clara, Josh, if anyone who felt like if something else came to them, right, they want to share something else in terms of priorities moving forward, especially that we may want to communicate to the city, right, in our kind of formal correspondence for the city's consideration for budget priorities and whatnot. So anyone want to chime in there with anything else they want to add?
I was reviewing some of our correspondence with the mayor, and last year in September, a letter to our commission, there were two things that I wanted to review with the mayor. One is the success or what happened with the park ranger program. And the other thing was that he mentioned in this letter in last September of a internal software procedure whereby instances, problems, suggestions, anything going on in the parks could be relayed to the administration and somehow and then fed to the appropriate person for action. And I would love to see if that has become reality and if it's a working system, and if not, how can we get it to work? Because I think safety was a big consideration when we talked about it.
I second the question with the Rangers, because I definitely have seen them, and I saw there was a post about it, but I just haven't had the chance to speak with anyone directly, or I've been hoping to cross paths with one of them and, you know, at least introduce myself and say hello. But I'd definitely be glad to hear an update from an official, you know, what's the current situation and how's it going, you know, from all those involved. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up too. As far as the software, is that related to the Report It app? Because I have used that. I don't know if that's the same thing, or if this would be something separate. But yeah, obviously still worth bringing up to just for clarification, like you mentioned.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's separate or not.
Okay. Yeah, just
I actually
curious.
had the same question, Josh, and I would have to look back at the mayor's correspondence that Nancy's referring to, because that jogged my memory that was a piece of the correspondence, and I think, but I'm not sure, it may have been referring to something somewhat distinct, right? Maybe Report It fed into it, but I think that's worth asking about again. And I think those two comments, I want to affirm too that I would also like to kind of prioritize just some of the these ongoing system improvements, right? I think the park ranger is definitely one, and kind of system maintenance, right? Referring to that, I remember the mayor's correspondence last year also said that they contracted some additional like seasonal outside help, right? Sounded like for the first time. So I would definitely be interested to hear more just about how all those efforts for kind of the ongoing preservation and improvement of our parks are being maintained and being felt, right? So maybe not flashy issues, but definitely important ones. One other I'll just put out there, and this is more just to reaffirm something, a previous work of ours, but insofar as we highlight particular parks that still need some additional TLC, I think it's worth highlighting again, particularly Kossuth Park and Baker Park are, and maybe to a in terms of amenities, right, and possibilities for upgrades. I think from our previous kind of park prioritization, those are the two that have been touched the least, right? And still show the most signs of potentially needing some extra TLC. So I think it'd be worth just highlighting those again. Particularly, I think once the city completes Feaster Park, that's one big project off its plate. Wolfson Deck will be the Wolfson Nielsen Street one will be a big one next, but as far as existing neighborhood parks, I think Kossuth and Baker would be top of the list from everything we've talked about over the last few years. Anything else that anyone else would want to share? So it sounds like so far, if I can summarize, that when we extend an invitation to the mayor and start to kind of frame our our advice, our recommendations for the coming year in terms of individual parks, it would be the possibility of a second dog park at Bucklew, Kossuth, and Baker, and then efforts around ongoing maintenance and improvement, particularly park rangers and kind of the maintenance protocol and programming, right? How can the city and how can we offer advice around how to increase regular programming? It sounds like is something that we want to highlight as well. Does that seem like a fair summary of the last few conversations where we're at?
Yeah, seems fair
Yeah.
to me.
Yes, sounds good to me. Hi, Charles. I have something came up for me, a couple of days ago, and I thought, wow, what if we have like activities in the park? Not every day or not every week or every park. For instance, like one month we may have like the chickens in one park, and then maybe Boyd Park this month, and then another park the next month. So it encourages family activity and interest. They would be penned, of course. They wouldn't be running all around, but like one section, activities in the park.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of kind of that focus of how can we create more structured activities in the park.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All the parks, right, on a more regular basis, right? Especially ones that bring families out, because that makes such a difference in the feel of parks, right, and their use. So yeah, I think and any good ideas that we can put out there and help the city consider or facilitate, I think we hopefully we can turn them on to that, right, or help turn other organizations on to that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Charles, this is Josh. I just want to let you know I sent a PDF as a backup of the PowerPoint slides that I put together. So if you can give me permission to share, then I can probably do it on my screen. But if not, I just wanted to let you know I emailed you.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
There's a button at the bottom that says I have to ask the organizer to present. So if you have the ability to give me that would be, I can try it, see if it works.
Okay. I'll see you in a minute. I'm not sure. This is my first time on the admin side of the application. So you might be asking too much of me, Josh. I don't know. But
that's why I sent it to you. I sent it to you too, so you can just present. It might not look as good with it. It's like a PDF, but you'll get the gist of it.
Okay, that's good.
If you need to just throw it up, that's fine. I have one or two other like websites I could pull up too if I can share my screen. But yeah, no pressure. If it I don't know how to tell you to do it. All I know is I have a button at the bottom that says I have to ask the organizer. So.
Very good. Okay, sounds good. So with that said, so I think we have a good consensus on kind of priority recommendations, and some of them are really just points of discussion, right, with the city and the mayor to hear some updates and be able to give more feedback on those items. So I'll develop that into a draft letter, and we will take that next step, sending that and the invitation to an upcoming meeting. So with that said, so one area of focus, right, that I know is dear to the heart of Josh, right, one of our newest commission members, which he has mentioned a few times, but in a few conversations I've been able to have with him. I thought it would be of great value, and Josh offered to share some of his expertise around trees, right? Is for those of you who don't know, I think most of you do, but Josh is a professional arborist, which is one of the reasons, just besides being a active, involved resident of the city with young kids, right? One of the reasons, one of the things he can offer to the commission. So we've heard some of that in bits and pieces, but this seemed like a good opportunity to ask Josh to share some more about that, right? Because it's actually not something we've talked about much, but it is actually in the enabling ordinance for this commission. It mentions trees as well as parks and open space and gardens as one of the things that can fall under our purview, right? And up until now, it just hasn't been something that's been on our radar in a very specific way, right? But it certainly could be, especially if we are, given some knowledge and tools to think about that a little more intentionally than we might otherwise, right? So, so that's Josh to do a little presentation for us here on kind of what it means to think about trees, right, systematically. And Josh, I know that you invited Johnny, right? I don't know if Johnny's going to tag team with you. So Johnny Meyer is another New Brunswick resident who's a member of the public, guest at tonight's meeting. But I'm not sure, Josh, if Johnny's also going to help present. But either way,
we mainly just had a few conversations previously, so I wanted to let him know that he could call in if he was interested in kind of catching up on some of the recent conversations. But no, he wasn't planning on presenting at all.
Okay, sounds good. Very good.
But thanks
with
for
that
joining.
said, then I'm going to open your PDF and see if I can share it now.
If you have, Charles, if you click the share button at the bottom, do you have options to allow people to share the screen, or is
It
it
doesn't look
not
like
on?
it gives me
Okay.
that option as far as I can tell. So I'm going to do. Okay, it's giving me a little issues now. Everyone can be a little patient while I try and configure this.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, it looks like, so this is because I opened it with a different Aaron's login. To be able to do that now, I have to quit. And re-enter. I don't know if that's going to kick everyone else out. So I'm going to quit. If it kicks everyone else off, I apologize, but just hop back on shortly and we'll resume. Sorry for the trouble, everyone.
Okay, thanks.
Can you come back in, Charles, as in a sec so that you're on twice and just mute the second instance? Or do you have to log out?
It's a good question. I mean, it's telling me.
It's a presenter issue. Like you don't have access to screen sharing unless you're on the other account. Okay.
Right. And I'm on that account, but because I'm on that account for the first time, that's why it's like making me go configure it for the first time. So
what if I just I was gonna say I could send the PDF and then just talk through it. But I don't know that I have everyone's. Did you get
yeah,
the
I
PDF?
can do that. That might be that's
you got
not
the
ideal,
PDF?
but I can just
Yeah, it's fine.
respond.
You got it. It worked. It opened and everything for you because I just literally saved it as a PDF like 5 minutes ago. So
Yep.
it looks
fine.
complete. Okay. Yeah. If you don't, maybe you could probably post. Is there a way to upload a file on this or no?
Good question.
Yeah, it's odd that it makes it so hard to share the screen. Sorry about that, everyone.
Okay, I just emailed everyone the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So we'll have to do it in a little of a roundabout way.
I'll try to do it just as a general, verbal information presentation, and then whoever has the slides, you can see it. Obviously that'll be helpful, but I'll try to make it clear enough without, for those of you who don't have it in front of you, just to kind of explain the topic. So did anyone get the email yet, or should I hang on a second?
I just got it.
Yeah, PDF from Charles with like
15
or 20
trees in
slides
the
on it.
urban landscape.
All right. Okay, I'll try to make this as concise as I can, but I appreciate everyone's attention. So yeah, as Charles said, I'm an arborist and I do a lot of work with trees in construction, with landscape, and as it relates to establishing tree canopy, establishing trees as infrastructure in cities because of all the ecosystem benefits they help improve. There's a lot that they contribute to air quality, aesthetics. They absorb a lot of water, prevent some flooding, and a big factor is reducing heat, especially in this time of year and the time when we have a lot of heat waves. So I'm just going to go through some kind of basic concepts and stuff just to kind of set the stage. But there's a lot, obviously cities have what's called an urban heat island effect, with all the hardscaping, asphalt, concrete, bricks, and other surfaces absorb heat and then reflect it back or radiate it back, and that's one of the reasons that cool areas, parks, and forests are often cooler and provide some relief in summer heat. So the second slide on there is just an aerial photo of New Brunswick. One of the ways that tree canopy can be assessed is through percent cover. So if you look at I have sort of a heat map of there. There's an example from New York City that shows how a lot of the more densely populated areas. It's just a good example of boroughs that are more densely built up. Obviously, Manhattan and the central parts of Queens and Brooklyn have the darkest color, and the highest sort of added temperature can be 10 or 12 degrees hotter in those areas on average than in areas like Staten Island and rural parts of Queens, with more forests, more wetlands, more natural areas. So as I said, there's a lot of research. If you look at page 6 on there, I just have a few different examples of it's kind of, they're stacked on there. Sorry. So I had it to show 3 or 4 different ones. So I'll share this presentation or we'll do it again another time if I can actually show the slides on here. But yeah, so there's a lot of studies that have been done to show that trees can reduce that urban heat effect, and provide a lot of those ecosystem services to people, to just comfortable places to inhabit, parks, city sidewalks and streets, when you're walking through and enjoying areas. It's very conducive to community building and to just allowing people to be comfortable in the areas they live. And so one of the assessments that we have is canopy cover, percent canopy cover. And so there's a feature called, or a website and an app called iTree Eco, that's developed by the U.S. Forest Service and a few other companies contributing research. And I included on here a slide of Middlesex County canopy cover, and it has 1 through 25 different townships and cities. Goes the top one, most canopy covers 50%, and the least is between 3 and 4%. New Brunswick is fairly low on the list. We have 14% cover. Highland Park, just for reference, obviously one of the closest other areas, has 27, so about double. So one of the ways that you can measure and improve your tree canopy is by knowing what you have, what species you have, which ones are declining. So one of the things I do related to work, and a lot of municipalities do it, is tree inventories, where they can assess what existing trees are, the sizes, species, condition, how well they're functioning, how well they're, it's when you can catch a lot of maintenance issues, which I know the city is responsible and does a good job of maintaining a lot of the trees. That's one of the other ways that the reported app can be useful, is I've reported, broken branches or things that I've noticed. But the canopy cover and the full inventory can be a very useful tool for that, which I've witnessed a lot of cities and municipalities benefiting from. I also include on there, again, this kind of gets lost without seeing the PowerPoint, but an example of just a snapshot of screen to show an area on Livingston and Edgeworth that shows sort of how canopy cover is assessed. You take the square footage of an area that a tree canopy covers, and then you subtract it from the full, or divide it by the full area of what's there in terms of land square footage, and then that comes up. So it shows, this photo that I have on here shows just an example of what 19% looks like of tree canopy cover. So obviously New Brunswick has an average of 14%, so even less than that when you include all the areas, even though you have a lot of really nice I have a few other aerial examples on there, so you can see the Cook campus photo shows obviously the farm, agricultural fields, and then a mature dense forested canopy that would be an example of 100% cover. I have a photo of there on Recreation Park, which obviously all the trees there are very small. If anyone who's been there, there's not very much percent cover in that park. And if you've been there again, there's not a lot of places to get in the shade on a hot day. Joyce Kilmer Park I have on there, which has significantly more tree canopy, especially in the area adjacent to Joyce Kilmer Avenue. So this is going to be one of the location that we're going to do the event in October, which everyone's invited to do a tree planting kind of in celebration and conjunction with the unveiling of the mural that Charles and a few other folks have worked together on. John is on this call, and Collab Arts is also part of that project. So I hope to see everybody there. But just an example of another of one of our tree parks. I didn't want to go too crazy with like showing examples of everything, but this is just so you guys get the concept of, looking at these from this view. You can realize from the photos here that you have some detail, but it's very blurry. Google aerial photos can only provide so much. So there's obviously technology to do that, and depending on what type of management you're looking at, you can get a lot more significant data, and that's really in my opinion, what you need if you're going to manage it very proactively and actually try to improve your canopy cover, because you need to know when really large trees come down, where you can replant to kind of recover some of that. So I also have an example on here, which was going to look cool, animated, but it is what it is. So there's a street corner with 3 real small trees that are probably about 8 feet in height, 8 or 10 feet tall. And then it shows after 6 years even, which I just showed this because a lot of people don't realize how quickly you can get really substantial tree canopy cover. And so the sidewalk on here has a really good shade cover, even though it's only been 6 years since these trees were. And this is just shout out to the city. They installed these Kentucky coffee trees, and they look really good. They're very healthy, and they have a good establishment even after a fairly short time. So just adding to the credence to the idea that you can plant trees, and even within 5 to 10 years you can see a really big improvement. I guess the slide, I missed that right before that, shows 2 trees that I've seen, or someone sent me a photo of either new saplings that have been planted and are already dead, especially in an area right next to a school, where if that had established some canopy, you'd have a nice shady walk for the students and folks going into the school. And then another one at the Welton Street Park that had a really nice swamp white oak that I had noted and appreciated there that recently died and was removed. So just showing that there's a lot of pressure, ecologically speaking, for trees to get established, and so it does take extra effort to have people observing and keeping out for it. That's one of the reasons we're doing the event in October, to try to educate people on how to avoid damaging trees, unnecessary damage, watering, mulching, not nicking the root, the bottom of the base with a string trimmer or weed eater whenever you're cleaning, mowing and maintaining. And then there's also something, so I listed off a few things here, just some of the different organizations and groups that I've worked with that either can provide, there's grant funding available. Some of them are groups that Denise or Charles, other folks on here are aware of or familiar with. Just trying to make kind of a consolidated list of some of those that are there. One thing that was interesting, I think that came up earlier, related to I think Nancy, you brought it up, related to the app or the tool that I think you reported, or that the mayor had mentioned. So this is something I came across in Camden, and I just included a screenshot of it on there. It's from, let's see, it's Camden Parks Preserved Land, and it's a map that has a lot of layers of the park area and some of the resources and features, that amenities that people can like search and find on there. So it crossed my mind when you asked that question. It's listed on here as community assets. So this is not exactly, but it's kind of an example of an aerial map that you could zoom in on this and show point for point on where all the trees would be if they were to get inventoried, and then you could demonstrate the percent cover you have, and sort of the green cover in your parks. And then it also is a good management tool. It's something that you can make available to the public, that they could see. You could mark the dog parks on here. You could mark the splash pads and the bathrooms, and anything that people are kind of generally interested in looking for. So it would kind of be a way you could utilize multiple things. This one I don't know that much about, this Camden example, but it just struck me as very similar to some of the mapping that we produce and other companies like mine produce. So it's a really nice thing to see as, you know, one of the options. And then I just put on here again some of the ideas that I've talked to a few different people about. The tree, I listed the October 15th tree planting event on here. There are things that, you know, we could do to try to assist with the current efforts. I know that Sal and a lot of folks, you know, do a good job maintaining and working with the trees that we have. But just, you know, I don't want to do anything that's counterproductive to what they're doing, but, you know, what ways that we could add and enhance and augment some of that from a citizen, you know, interested parties, people who are aware of and can appreciate the benefits, and also help educate people on, you know, how to better maintain and protect and utilize the trees that we have, and, you know, hopefully eventually start to increase that canopy cover. Well, we have more control, obviously, or influence in the parks, but just broadly overall in the city, I think there could be a really big benefit for, you know, the community and ecosystem services as well, between, you know, wildlife and pollinators. And there's a lot of ways you can kind of tie these benefits together with some effort. Sometimes it's all volunteer, but sometimes there, like I mentioned on here, there's some grants that we could try to get to kind of push that forward. So yeah, this is just kind of like I said, a lot of stuff I tried to throw together quickly enough that kind of in response to one of the conversations I had with Charles. So I'm happy to talk to anybody more about specifics on here, and, you know, potentially we'll try to have another venue if there's other folks who want to learn more about this, maybe, you know, and I can try to get my technology to work. Maybe if Aaron's back, we can get the screen sharing to work with everybody. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I appreciate everybody's attention. So any specific question? Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a push within the city to increase the canopy?
Not to my knowledge, but that's kind of why I just wanted to share this as someone who lives here and, you know, is interested. I see it as a benefit. You know, overall, a lot of the cities that I work with, they target sort of like a 30 to 35% canopy cover. But no, there's no obligation or anything. If you do want to get some of the grant funding, there would be certain thresholds you'd have to meet, and not that you have to meet a certain canopy cover, but that you have to show certain maintenance and plans that you have in place, kind of like here's our goals, here's our existing conditions and things like that. But no, I'm really just bringing this up for us as a group to know what exists and what sorts of things we could ask for, and sort of do either on our own through volunteer work, or try to ask, advocate for citywide improvement and sort of enhancing the resources that we already have.
Josh, this is Judith. This is a really great presentation. Number one, I just really thank you for this. It's really great and very enlightening in terms of where we are within our city limits. So Nancy kind of answered my question. She asked it first. The push, I was going to say, has it been presented to the city, and is there, as Nancy already asked, you know, willingness and or push to look at this and craft a plan? I think it's great. I think it's needed. I welcome it, and I really would love to put this on it already is, but really craft a response and support this. I live downtown, and I see on that one canopy view, it's populated. It looks like with greenery, but yeah, I would love to see more. I live south or whatever towards Raritan off of George Street, and it looks like it has a lot, and it does, but there could be so much more. So I welcome this, and I want to support it in any shape or form. So thank you very much for sharing this and bringing this to our attention, and I'm hoping we can do something.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the encouragement. It does also overlap a lot. There's a few different groups I've talked to. Denise introduced me with someone who's on the Environmental Commission that some of you may also know. His name's also Josh, but one of his interests was related to pollinator gardens. And so one of the ways that enhancing tree canopy cover and you know, sort of trying to show you know, these things work in tandem in terms of creating green space that is supportive for wildlife and can create those sort of networks of, like, you know, they call them green corridors, or you know, areas that can connect sort of patchwork around the city, that then you end up with a better overall ecosystem. Even though it is a city, you know, you're kind of overlaying these things to where, you know, animals, birds, and insects can have more suitable habitat and don't find themselves in these sort of concrete, you know, desert areas that they just need to avoid entirely. So yeah, these overlap well with other tree planting efforts, greenery, you know, rooftops. Yeah, there's just a lot of opportunities. So it's just a matter of, like I said, not wanting to reinvent the wheel, but wanting to sort of um, avail my experience and what I'm aware of to what we could do, you know, potentially ask for and volunteer to help out, you know, to help to benefit the city overall. Any other thoughts before I just want to pass it back to Charles, if in the interest of time, if needed?
Yes,
I have one or
Josh,
two questions, if
Sure, go
that's
ahead.
okay. As I was going between, I'm having reception problems. Go ahead, Clara. You're welcome to.
no, I just want to ask Josh, when was this aerial photo taken? And how long have you, you know, when did you start this interest in the trees, etc., in New Brunswick?
Yes. So I've when you say the photo, you mean the aerial, like the main one at the
Yes.
beginning of the this one I just took online, or I took from online.
I just want to say that New Brunswick has always been a green city, and maybe it was not really structured, but there's always been, you know, a green city. And many of the trees were taken down recently and new ones planted. And also the old ones were taken down because of the roots interfering with the sewer. And you know, I'm quite happy with New Brunswick and what they're doing. But sometimes I think that like I get a little bit from you, like we're not doing enough. And I would really, yeah, I would really like to have a chat with you. You know, you can, you know, we can meet at your convenience.
Yeah, I'd be happy to hear. Definitely, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So Josh, I had thank you, Clara. I had a few questions, particularly on some of the specifics, right? In terms of potential next steps, right? So let me see if I get back to that. So, and I think just to respond first to Claudia, your comment or concern, right? I think, you know, in our role as a commission too, right, is obviously to provide advice and recommendations to the city, right? And so, you know, we're always looking for ways that we can offer, right, constructive and helpful advice and ideas. That doesn't mean that, you know, we think the city is doing poorly on any specific issue, right? But, you know, particularly since trees is not a topic we've dug into much in the past, having someone like Josh with a professional background in this seemed like a good opportunity to learn in terms of the things you know, that professional arborist looks at in a city urban environment, right? And particularly if we can look at opportunities, right, that we might not have been aware of to support the city's efforts to improve, you know, urban tree canopy and improve our shared environment. You know, I think that's a good thing, right? It's certainly not about just creating a litany of complaints, right? That's not what we're about, and I don't think that was Josh's intention either by any means. I think, for example, the I know that so tree ordinance, for example, I had been I just happened to look because I never thought to look before, but whether our city code includes a tree ordinance. So I did find there's I just put it in the chat. There's a section in the municipal code, right, an ordinance around tree removal requirements that has lots of sections that may touch on other specifics, right? And then um, there a section around shade trees as well, separately. So I think it might be interesting to kind of, that's a good, interesting place to start, right? To see kind of how it's framed currently, right? And what kind of um, oh yeah, sorry, I sent that accidentally to Judith. I mean to Denise instead of everyone, but I'm gonna copy and paste again the two relevant sections of the municipal code on trees.
Is this in a chat or email?
This is in the chat in the meeting chat. I can send it as an email follow-up as well.
Okay. Because I'm using my iPad, so it's not letting me do some things.
Okay. I can also send that in an email as well.
That would be good.
But so that's just kind of a resource to share, right, in case there's anything to look at in terms of an ordinance. But Josh, I'm curious if you've worked with communities or been aware of communities that have, for example, set a specific goal around, this is our percentage of tree cover right now, and our goal within 5 years, 10 years is to increase it to X, right? Is that something that you're aware of communities have done? Is that sort of a viable way of approaching it? Just curious about that.
Yeah, it's usually part of it. The biggest thing is so just as a kind of when things aren't when you're not proactive about it, large trees come down and then two small trees get planted, and then often they don't last very, they don't survive. I'm just saying from my experience, that's what normally happens. And so usually without a fairly and they nothing I was saying was intended to disparage the work that's already happening, but just from what I'm aware of in terms of numbers and quantities and restitution or replacement sizes, over time you're gonna lose canopy just inevitably, and because mature trees cover 10,000 square feet, and then they come down in a storm, and then you plant two real small trees, and if you're not maintaining them, they die, and then you kind of just wonder where the trees went over after 5 or 10 years. So that's just my experience, is over time you're going to lose the canopy cover. But yes, short answer to your question, they're usually setting a goal and trying to reach that.
And another question would be around the tree inventory. I think I remember you saying in the past that Highland Park, if I remember correctly, did a volunteer inventory. And I'm just curious about sort of what would be required in terms of people hour, coordination, level of engagement to do a tree inventory, whether that be primarily volunteer initiative or grant funded, right? Just kind of how big of a lift is that?
Yeah, I'm gonna apologize now because my battery might die in my computer here, but I'm trying to call in on my phone. Yeah, so they did the volunteer version because they had a one of the Shade Tree Advisory Committee members has access to a lot of GIS software, which is typically what you want to use, something that you can plot a point and record data on a map that then is interface with different computers or different tablets and phones. So I would be happy to do, we could try to do something like that, kind of to the point, generally speaking, and what I was trying to include earlier is like, I'm not trying to do anything like this on my own necessarily, just letting everyone aware of, making everyone aware of what we could be looking for or asking for, and anything to try to do in tandem with the city and further the efforts that they already have, and that they might not have a tree inventory, or they might not see that as valuable or important, in which case I'm not trying to go make it on my own, but yeah, it'd be something I'd be happy to do as a volunteer and help people do, show everybody how to use it. We just need to use phones or iPads. You can walk around and record the information. I think in Highland Park they spent like 3 months doing it with 2 or 3 people, and then yeah, we do it for work, professional, with a staff of 5 or 6 folks, and you can do a couple thousand trees in a week. It just depends on what the sort of focus is. But New Jersey State, New Jersey DEP Urban and Community Forestry Program is what typically funds these. So a community gets a grant, and then they put out an RFP and hire. I think I listed like 5 or 6 different companies that a lot of people use. So we could get bids from all those people and pay them to do it, or just do it as a internal thing. Again, if it's wanted, if it would be helpful, but yeah, to me, it's, you have to have a baseline, and then you can see change 2, 3, 5 years down the road if your numbers are going up or down, which they normally go down unless you're planting a significant number of trees. But that's just a general observation.
Josh, it's Denise. Can I ask if you generally do an inventory of the trees that are in place right now, or can you do the spaces that might accommodate trees? Is there any precedent for looking at where there might be open lots or small enough plots that could handle a tree but probably not be developed? Does that not make sense?
Can you hear me, Denise? I just switched to my phone here. Yes.
Yes.
That's a normal factor, and sometimes it's they do it by counting, like wanting to inventory the stumps. So like where a tree was cut down. I know that's why I say I don't work closely with Sal. I know he has someone that he's mentioned before who's helping provide the trees for that October 15th planting. So I'm more than happy, and my goal would be to talk to them and figure out what resources they have. I know they do a decent number of street tree planting. Like I said, those ones that I pointed out on the PowerPoint that they've planted, and they know they do, they're proactive about it. But yes, so you could do, they probably have a working list of the spaces they want to plant. I don't know how it's organized, if it's just they remember it, they wrote it down somewhere, and then they have a list that they work from, which is totally fine if that's what works. But again, this is if you want to get $20,000-$30,000 as a grant to help manage and increase and improve, trees in parks, trees anywhere, if that's a constraint for them, this would be a way to sort of utilize an existing resource within the state. And then there's also other grants that Sustainable Jersey has. The federal government is giving a lot of money to the states to help establish tree cover canopy in schools and on sidewalks and parks. So yeah, but yes, you can do you can inventory. You're just dropping a GPS point anywhere you want to, and then you can label it whatever it is. You say this is a tree lawn, this is a 20-foot area you could plant 2 trees. You could just say it's a stump, you could say it's an open field. Most of the time we're measuring the trunk of the tree, size, estimating canopy, recording species, and but you're still recording a GPS point. So it's all the same technologically. You just are deciding what you're marking. You could mark anything.
Got it. That makes sense. One of the other resources I know we have worked with is Bloomberg Philanthropy. We got for it was the street art project. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was an intersection, and they have a supporting sustainable cities effort, and there's a lot of different funding opportunities through that. Might be another resource for us if we wanted to look for external funding, because we already have a relationship with them.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Thank you.
Josh, would you say that a well so it sounds like obviously a tree inventory is a very helpful step, especially kind of create an overall baseline, right? If a community is going to look at its overall tree health in big picture long term, right? But would you also say that, I mean, I'm looking at some of the funding opportunities available, that you wouldn't necessarily need the benefit of a comprehensive tree inventory to say, oh, we want to encourage the school district to apply for this green schoolyards grant, right? Or whatever particular, tree planting support might already be available, right? I would think kind of these things could be done in parallel, right? Or just as opportunities arise, it doesn't necessarily have to be linear with a formal tree inventory
And that's
first, then
yeah. So the inventory can be for the urban and community forestry grant program. Sorry for getting a echo here. One of the components they want a management plan to show what like. They want an inventory, but they'll give you a grant to do it. It's kind of how it works. And then, but that's like the first step. But yeah, for the Trees for Schools program and some of these other opportunities, that's one of the reasons why I invited John to join in, because he and I have talked about 2 or 3 different schools that he either knows the principal or knows folks at the school, and they're considering applying, and that has absolutely nothing to do with an inventory. So yes, those would just be a kind of encouragement and giving people the information they need, and then helping, we could potentially be a resource to help people coordinate and get their logistics together. If I know school administrators and folks are always overwhelmed with plenty of things to do. So like to help people get across the finish line with applying and getting these grants, and then it would be a great volunteer opportunity to help plant as well, if and when those things came through. But yeah, the inventory is more tied for, a city arborist usually has an inventory. So I'm not aware of one, but it's possible that they have one. But that's just my experience. And it just, it's scaled by city. Sometimes it's worth it. Real small towns don't have them. But then, New Brunswick is somewhere in the middle of it, could be utilized. But yeah, it's usually you want to do it every 5 years or 10. They do it to see the change over time is like one of the bigger sort of takeaways.
ERI that was created, I think, about a year or 2 ago. And if that section is not in there, perhaps we can make a recommendation that it be considered to be added to our environmental resource inventory. That's another, when we look at what's in there, I don't know if that's in there or not, but it would make sense. We have a place to house it and to build upon if that's an opportunity for us.
Sorry, maybe I missed that first part. Did you say Sustainable Jersey?
No, we have an ERI, the Environmental Commission, to get an environmental resource inventory, and it's on our website, but I just don't know all of the sections of that. So that might be something, yes, a place that it could house or integrate in there.
Okay. Yes. Great. Thank you.
The other thing I should mention is that there was a funding opportunity that was specific to schools that I saw about a month ago, and I did forward it to two of the heads of science from the middle schools and the high schools to see if they were interested, on behalf of the commission or the environmental commission. I just forwarded the information along, and they were very excited and have asked if we could meet with them to talk about the work that the environmental commission is doing. And I did forward and include Josh in that invitation so that we might be able to do a joint environmental commission and parks and gardens commission kind of consultation with them to see how we might be able to support what the schools are trying to do and funnel some funding opportunities their way. So we'll keep you posted. I asked them about having a meeting after the first month of school in October. So we'll let you know how that goes.
That's great. Thank you, Denise. And I think, I hear possibly already several, areas of opportunity. And I definitely think, schools are a great entry point. If we can help, individual schools or the district, take advantage of resources that might already be out there, right? The as you said in your next steps to the sustainable Jersey, right? I haven't been directly. I think that came up in last month's meeting, and that's something that the Environmental Commission is already engaged in. I think it would be worth at least folks who are involved in that, where being aware of if there are items right around trees or tree canopies that could be lifted up in that process. Next thing, Josh, I'm going to offer myself to see if we can set up a time with Sal, you and I, in the coming weeks, where we can just try and get a little more information about their current work that they're doing, what what they already have inventory, right? Kind of their maintenance model, all of that, and just see, so we have start with a clearer picture of what they're already doing, right? And where we might be able to, encourage additional resources. So I think in part, then like I think, for example, it helped to have that conversation in advance of aiming with the mayor, in the event that we could specifically suggest to the mayor that the city apply, for example, for the NJDP tree inventory grant, right? That I can see that definitely being a good initial step, right? Especially if there's not an existing kind of comprehensive inventory. So I think that conversation with Sal would be a good and necessary first step. So I'll try and see if we can get on the calendar with him in the next few weeks. So so we spent a good little chunk of time on that. Thank you again, Josh. Are there any final questions for Josh or comments? And obviously, I think it sounds like there's enough enthusiasm among the group and agreement that this is, definitely a valid focus for us as a commission, that we can kind of keep it on our radar and circle back in future meetings. But for the moment, any additional questions or comments before we move on?
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah,
Great
I
presentation.
appreciate all your questions. Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, great presentation.
All right, thank you. Very good. So just next item. So there's sort of a number of, I think, probably just brief announcements or updates related to park news, but just for everyone to be aware. First, I believe shared already in the email, but just to verbalize for those who didn't see that, the Feaster Park renovation is complete, and the grand opening is this Thursday at 1 o'clock at the park. The official opening ceremony, right? So everyone is obviously invited if they're available, and thereafter invited to go check out the renovated parks. That's been a long time coming. Very exciting. So that's one. And then just this was also shared via email, the communication from the city regarding the Nielsen Street Park, right? And that's would be a open space trust fund expenditure, right? Some of the partial costs to move that project more formally into the kind of design, I think from, it might be worth following up exactly what that means in terms of the timeline, right, of the project, but at least it's kind of moving into the next next phase of planning and preparations. But I was encouraged to see that as well. Judith, do you want to give a brief update on the planning around the Riverside Bark Halloween event, so folks
Sure.
are up to?
Sure. A quick update. I think everyone knows that we are interested in having an event at the Riverside Bark Dog Park, which would be a Halloween custom contest for dogs and dog owners and dog enthusiasts. And we're currently in the process of working through some of the details, budget being one of those. I think we noted this earlier that we do not hold a budget within the Parks and Gardens Commission. Therefore, we have to work with partners, whether it be city funded and or sponsorships. So right now we're looking at coordinating or collaborating with one of those above to cover some of the costs. And those costs would be such as application fee, also headcount for any personnel that need to be present, such as the maintenance crew and such. And then there's also police presence and potentially insurance. So we're working that through, and hopefully we can get that ironed out and potentially launch an event this year. But we'll keep you all in the loop on that, but it's really just process and protocol at this point in time. So we hope to have positive news fairly soon.
Very good. Thank you, Judith. Definitely keep us posted on that. Hope it comes to fruition. Just one other brief update. As you all know, the Joyce Kilmer mural project involving trees. So it's actually this past weekend was the first time the artist and her assistants got out there to start it. They didn't get too far along because, as you all know, it was a very rainy weekend. They were just a couple hour and a half or two into the initial work when we got that tremendous hailstorm. So they didn't get as far as they might have hoped on the first weekend, but we'll be continuing it on the subsequent weekends and should still be finished by the end of the month. And as Josh mentioned, that would culminate then with a mural dedication event and tree planting in the park on October 15th. So keep an eye on that if you're around the park in Joyce-Kilmer Ave, stop by and see as it's taking shape. I think it sounds like the Kossuth Park concerns were raised last time, and Sal had an update on that. I just wasn't sure if you'd be here tonight to offer any further update, but I think that was, as far as we know, covered last time. Any other just park updates or news that anyone's aware of or would like to share? Okay. Just the last item on the agenda would be just a early heads up in terms of 2024 commission terms. This was prompted in part because I think I can share this, but Nancy has shared that she does not anticipate renewing for another term after her term ends at the end of this year. So we'll greatly miss Nancy, both as a general participant and contributor, as well as being a very attentive secretary, which will be hard to match. But thank you. Obviously, we'll still have Nancy a few more months, right? So we don't have to say bye yet, obviously. But she did have the courtesy to let us know ahead of time, because as you all know, although the mayor appoints members, we can make recommendations for candidates, right, to be considered. So I thought it'd be worth letting the commission know, and that there will be an open secretary role to be filled by either current or future member starting in January. But Nancy, not to put you on the spot or anything, but anything you'd want to add to that?
About taking over the position?
Just in general.
I've really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. A little scary at times, but fun. And I've actually gone back to refresh my memory sometimes, so I do use the minutes when I look at the agenda. It keeps, if anyone is interested in taking over, it's definitely a job that keeps you engaged. So yeah, I've had a good time, and it's been fun working with everybody, but I think after 6 years, it's time.
Well, it's been wonderful working with you, Nancy. I'm looking forward to the next few months to continue to have your involvement, and we will certainly miss you. Your contributions, your knowledge, your history has been just really exceptional, and it's going to be a loss to us. So hopefully you'll come to some of our events.
I'll come by and annoy you guys from time to time.
Yeah, Nancy, you will be definitely, you're an asset to the commission, to the city. I'm so, I understand it's 6 years, but you will be definitely missed, and your contribution is noted and recognized. So thank you so much for everything.
Nancy, and if I can actually ask you something else in your role as secretary, but I didn't have a chance to pull up the commissioner terms, just to refresh.
I have them.
Yeah, if you can just refresh our memories, who else his term is ending at the end of this year?
Charles, your term is up 2023, as is Clara's and mine. And I checked my list from last year against what's posted on the website and it's in agreement. So I think it's just the three of us that come due for reappointment in January.
Okay. And by the way, that's not saying that, Clara, that you or I are encouraged to depart. We don't need an exodus. Although, of course, any end of term is an opportunity to make sure we want to recommit to another term. But with that said, obviously, if anyone has suggestions that we might want to consider, or obviously anyone can individually make a recommendation to the city for consideration. I believe I did ask Nancy. I'm not sure if you did so, Nancy, but I suggested to Nancy that she hold off on officially notifying the city since we have a little time yet, so that we would have an opportunity as a commission to maybe, if we wanted to try and have come to some consensus on a candidate we might want to recommend in Nancy's as Nancy's replacement. That would give us
I have not notified the mayor as yet. I will, as soon as you say you give me the go ahead, I'll let him know. But I haven't said anything to anybody except you folks.
Well, I know in the past we've had one or two conversations about that, right? So we could revisit those. One thing I just want to put out there as a suggestion for us to consider in any recommendation is, I think we as a commission, if given the opportunity to make a recommendation, we could benefit from geographic diversity on the commission. And particularly, I mean, folks who may live in a different area of the city and be familiar with different neighborhood parks, right, than those of us currently on the commission. I think that obviously, besides all the other things, that is helpful for someone who's active in the community and knowledgeable and passionate, but that has some perspective on areas and parks that we might now collectively not have as much of, right? I think that's would be an extra factor that we might want to consider. So just something to put out there. Maybe if everyone wants to think on that, sleep on that, and then we can put that on the next month's agenda and see if maybe there's by October we could maybe think of a recommendation that we can simultaneously share with the city as Nancy formally offers her or notification that she won't renew, not a resignation. Okay, so with that said, I think that brings us to just the final perfunctory items of the agenda. Any other communications and reports any commissioners have received or would like to share regarding commission business or parks? And
the only thing I'd like to do is extend an invitation to the members of the Parks Commission to attend the Environmental Commission meeting. We're going to be talking about Sustainable Jersey and potentially the Green Team, but certainly the Sustainable Jersey process and the fact that the Green Team is a mandatory component of that. And we'll have a guest visitor who will be speaking about that program from the College of New Jersey, from the Sustainable Jersey organization. That meeting is on September 18th. And I believe it's at 7 p.m. And it's the regular Environmental Commission meeting. So the information is on the website, on the city's website for joining the meeting. I'll send out a little bit of information and a formal request to everyone.
That's next Monday, right, Denise?
Correct.
Is the Environmental Commission meeting virtually or in person these days?
Virtually. We're still virtual.
Okay. Good. All right, thank you. That's great timing, actually, given the conversation we just had. So
Yeah.
if a few of us are able to make it, I think that would definitely be beneficial. And then last but not least, was someone, sorry, I wasn't sure if that was an echo, if someone was about to pipe in. Okay, I think that's just my echo. Any members of the public wish to speak? John, I know you were listening in and I know you shared a couple comments in the chat. Thank you for that. But anything you'd like to offer before we wrap up?
Well, I guess I did have a question for Josh. I was wondering if in that 14% tree cover, does that include the properties of Rutgers and J&J? Josh may not be there now.
Hey, can you hear me, John?
I can hear you. Yeah, thank you.
I believe it is because it's just using satellite imagery. So everything is very sort of cursory or yeah, it's just like an aerial photo. There's no property differentiation in that. It's literally just the surface area of the city boundaries and then where you can tell where tree canopy is as a percentage of the full area.
So as municipal property goes, whether it's in the public right of ways or in the parks or around people's houses, then the situation is actually kind of worse than where the 14% is, right? Because we've got these two major outliers that are Rutgers and J&J that have a lot of tree canopy cover. I mean, it's a very visceral difference to be around.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a common factor because so I work in New York City a lot and they have a certain canopy that they shoot for, but really Staten Island has significantly higher canopy cover than the rest of the boroughs. And so you get these hot, dense areas, and then that's sort of diffuse over the rest of it. But yeah, I don't want to pin too much on the number, like we talked about a little bit earlier, just because I'm not sure. It's from an aerial photography, and it's not, someone. It's through the iTree service, which anybody's more than welcome to connect. I can send several of these links and whatnot. So there's a lot of resources that are just kind of go through that aerial imagery that's available to anybody. But yeah, really, if you're going to pin down numbers as a management plan, you really need to work with something a little more specific and, like you said, property specific. So you're knowing what you're actually managing.
That makes sense, Josh. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. Appreciate the question. Thanks.
That's a good point, John, and maybe another, argument in favor of doing a tree inventory, right? So you can be a little more precise about not just kind of one generic number for citywide, but which areas of the city would benefit the most from increased tree canopy. It's a good point.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Charles.
So, barring any other final questions, comments, then we've reached the end of our agenda. 8 o'clock on the dot. It's pretty good. So,
Hey, Charles.
yes,
Charles,
Clara, please.
I just want to take this opportunity to say congratulations to, the Esperanza neighborhood. And you.
Thank you. Any particular reason, or just a general congratulations, which I'll accept?
How about $1 million congratulations?
Oh.
Well,
Yes, thank you. I think you're referring to, yes, we were recipients of $1 million state grant for neighborhood revitalization through the state neighborhood revitalization tax credit program. So very excited about that and what we'll be able to accomplish with that. So thank you.
Wow, that's wonderful. Congratulations.
It's spectacular.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Well done.
Thank
Yep.
you. So very good. Well, thank you for that, Claudia. And then if no other final comments, I think we can move to close for the evening. Anyone like the motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Aye.
Bye.